Hello my hero, have a nice viewing dear. If you like the story, please like it and write your opinion in the comments, please please please.
I raised that boy for 7 years, never once questioning that he was mine. From the moment he took his first breath in that delivery room, I loved him with a depth I didn't know I was capable of. I changed diapers, sang lullabies, taught him how to ride a bike, and wiped away his tears when he scraped his knees. He was my son. Or so I thought. It started with something small, just a routine pediatric checkup. Nothing serious. The doctor suggested we do a simple genetic test to check for hereditary markers, since he had shown signs of a rare allergy that didn't run in my family. I agreed without hesitation. Why would I ever think twice? The results took a week to come in. I'll never forget the call. Mr. Grayson, the results are unusual. Would you mind coming in for a more detailed discussion? Unusual. That word wouldn't stop echoing in my mind. I sat in the sterile, too-white clinic the next morning, my palms slick with sweat. The doctor spoke calmly, clinically, as if he wasn't tearing apart everything I knew about my life. The DNA markers don't match. Based on our testing, there is 0 chance that you're the biological father. I stared at him like he'd spoken in another language. What do you mean? Are you saying the samples got mixed up? He shook his head. We double-checked. I left the clinic in a haze. I didn't even drive home. I sat in the car, keys in hand, engine off, just breathing. Or trying to. Because nothing made sense. That evening, I waited until our son was asleep. I asked Olivia to sit down with me at the kitchen table. She looked tired, confused. What's going on? I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just slid the test results across the table and said, "Explain this." Her face drained of color faster than I thought humanly possible. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Then, just like that, she crumbled. Collapsed into sobs. Her entire body trembled as she clutched the paper like it might burn her. "It was one time," she whispered. "I swear to God, just once." My pulse thundered in my ears. "Who?" She wouldn't look at me. "Who, Olivia?" She sobbed harder. "Your father. It was your dad. It was 7 years ago. You were away. That business trip to Montreal." The world slowed to a crawl. I stood up. Backed away. My hands were shaking, but not from rage yet. Just shock. Confusion. Disgust. "He's my brother?" I asked quietly. "My son is my brother." She nodded, breaking completely. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I didn't even think it was possible." I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just walked out of the house and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't breathe in that house 1 second longer. Not with the weight of that truth pressing down on my chest. They thought I didn't know. But I always knew something was off. I just didn't know it was this. The next morning, I stood outside my parents' house. I hadn't been there in over a year. Not since my dad and I had a falling out over something I can't even remember anymore, something petty. He had always been a proud man. Cold. The type who shook your hand instead of hugging you. The kind who wore a tie to mow the lawn because you never know who's watching. I knocked. He opened the door, wearing that same pressed flannel shirt he always wore. His face lit up in a surprised smile, but I didn't return it. "We need to talk," I said. He stepped aside. "Come in, son." I didn't sit. I stood in the middle of his living room, staring at the family photos on the mantel. Me as a kid. My wedding. Him holding my son. Ironic. "Do you remember Montreal?" I asked. He raised an eyebrow. "Of course. That deal with the Mavros group. I was gone for 6 days." He nodded. "Yeah. Why?" I met his eyes. "Did you sleep with Olivia?" His expression didn't change right away. Just a flicker, barely a twitch at the corner of his mouth. But it was there. A crack in the facade. I asked you a question? I said, my voice low, steady. He exhaled, slow. She told you. So it's true. He looked down. Said nothing. That silence, that cowardly, pitiful silence, told me everything. I raised that boy. I named him after you, I said. My voice broke, just slightly. You sat at my table. You looked me in the eye. You let me believe. It was a mistake, he muttered. No, I snapped. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. What you did was a betrayal. To me. To my son. To your grandson, your son. He rubbed his forehead like he was the one under stress. I didn't think he was mine. Olivia told me it was over. We were drunk. Shut up, I said. He looked up, shocked. I don't care about your excuses. I don't care how drunk you were or what lies she told you. You're my father. You were supposed to protect me. And you took everything from me. He opened his mouth, maybe to apologize. Maybe to explain. I didn't give him the chance. I came here to look you in the eye. To make sure you knew I know. And to tell you, neither of you will ever see him again. You can't. I can. And I will. I turned and walked out. He didn't follow me. He didn't call my name. He just stood there in that pristine little house full of fake memories, watching me leave. I didn't cause a scene. I washed. And now I was preparing. I filed for divorce the following week. No drama. No shouting matches. I had my lawyer draft the papers and serve Olivia while she was picking our son up from school. I didn't even tell her in advance. She called me 37 times that day. I didn't answer a single one. When she finally showed up at my door, eyes red and lips trembling, I just stared at her through the glass. Please, she said. Just talk to me. Please. I opened the door, just enough to step out and close it behind me. You told me it only happened once, I said. She nodded desperately. It was. I swear, just that one time. I held up my hand. Then explained the hidden paternity clause in your medical records. The one you signed at the hospital after giving birth. Her face froze. I had found it while reviewing the birth records with my attorney. She had signed paperwork indicating paternity uncertain. I had never known. It had been buried in a folder I never thought to open. You knew, I said. You knew from the beginning. I didn't, she cried. I wasn't sure, I swear. I thought it was yours. I hoped. You hoped? I said, laughing bitterly. You gambled with my life. You let me raise my own brother. She collapsed onto the porch, sobbing into her hands. I didn't want to lose you. I loved you. I still do. I crouched down, lowering my voice so our son wouldn't hear from inside. You don't get to use that word anymore. Love? You buried it the second you let him touch you. Her breath hitched. I'll fight for full custody, I said coldly. And I'll win. I have the best family attorney in the state. You'll get weekends, maybe. But you don't get to live in my house. You don't get my name. And you never get another lie past me again. She reached for me, like that meant anything. I stood up and walked back inside, locking the door behind me. From the hallway, my son, no, my brother, looked up at me, his eyes wide. Daddy, why is Mommy crying? I knelt down and pulled him into my arms. She made a big mistake, I said softly. But it's not your fault. You're safe. I've got you. He buried his face in my chest. And in that moment I knew he was innocent. He didn't choose any of this. But me? I chose clarity. And I was done living in the dark. The custody battle was brutal. Olivia tried everything, tears, therapy, even dragging my name through the mud in court. Claimed I was unstable. That I'd abandoned the family emotionally. That I was using our son as a pawn in my vendetta. Her lawyer leaned hard into painting me as vengeful, cold, and unwilling to co-parent. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I documented everything. Every lie. Every manipulation. Every piece of evidence. The DNA tests. The paternity clause. The counseling session transcripts she conveniently forgot to mention. Even the messages between her and my father. Yes, she'd kept some, tucked away in an old email account. She never thought I'd find them. I found them. And when I presented those messages in court, where she begged my father to please say it never happened, and help me keep this family, the room went dead silent. The judge looked at her like she was a stranger to her own son. In the end, I got sole custody. She got visitation twice a month, supervised. The day the judgment was read, she broke down in the hallway outside the courtroom. I walked right past her, my arm around the boy I had raised, the boy I would keep raising, no matter whose DNA said what. But I wasn't done. There was still one loose end. My father. I hadn't spoken to him since that day on his porch. He hadn't reached out either. But I knew something he didn't. I had access to the trust fund my grandfather left. A fund my father had been managing. So I had it audited. Every withdrawal. Every wire transfer. Every undeclared asset. And guess what? Turns out betrayal runs deep in men like him. He'd been skimming off the top for years. Money that was supposed to go to me, to my son. Thousands, no, hundreds of thousands, disappeared under bogus investment losses. I filed a suit. Elder fraud. Breach of fiduciary duty. Embezzlement. The man who destroyed my family with one disgusting night of weakness? He'd now be spending his retirement defending himself in court. They thought I was broken. But I was preparing. And when I strike clean. A month later, the lawsuit hit my father like a freight train. His smug face vanished the moment he opened that envelope. I heard from a mutual cousin. He thought the trust fund was his birthright, not something to pass down. He had no idea I'd hired forensic accountants, no idea I'd quietly transferred the case to a federal investigator who specialized in white-collar crime. The best part? I didn't even have to show up. I let the system do the dirty work. Depositions. Frozen accounts. A subpoena to his employer. His proud little consulting gig at the firm he bragged about all through my childhood. They fired him within days. The community he once held in his grip began to whisper. The same people who toasted him at banquets now avoided eye contact in the grocery store. Men like him build legacies with their egos. But when that legacy starts to rot, they don't know how to hold it together. And Olivia? She tried to spin it. Told friends I was on a revenge crusade. But no one was buying it anymore. Word had gotten out about the DNA test. About the court case. About everything. Even her closest friends started to pull away. Funny how silence can be louder than shouting. Meanwhile, I focused on my son. We moved to a new city, started fresh. I found a new job, remote, flexible, and high-paying. I picked him up from school every day. We played chess, made pancakes, built Lego kingdoms and knocked them down together. But the past never stays buried. One night, I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my father's voice. Fragile. Raspy. I lost everything. They're going to take the house. I know I messed up. But I never stopped loving you. You were my son before you were anything else. Please call me back. I deleted the message without flinching. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was done. And that's when I knew I'd won, not just in court, not just in custody, but in the quiet power of walking away from people who once held power over you. They taught me betrayal. But I taught them consequence. 2 weeks later, Olivia showed up at my new place. Uninvited. She must have gotten the address from the school directory. I opened the door just enough to block her view inside. She looked worn, no makeup, hair messy, hands fidgeting with the strap of her purse. She wasn't there to fight. I just want to talk, she said softly. I don't, I replied. She looked down. Please. Just 5 minutes. I didn't want her in my house. I didn't want her anywhere near the life I had rebuilt. But I stepped outside. Closed the door behind me. She looked around awkwardly. It's a nice neighborhood. I waited. She exhaled. I know you hate me. I probably deserve it. But I've been thinking about what you said. About how I lied. About how I gambled with our son's life. And you're right. I did. Silence. I was scared. She continued. I convinced myself it didn't matter whose DNA it was, because you were already a better father than either of them could ever be. I said nothing. I didn't need to. But now, he's asking questions. He's confused. He misses me. He misses the version of you that wasn't lying, I said flatly. And that version doesn't exist anymore. She flinched. You're right. I don't want him to grow up thinking I never loved him. I stared at her. Then maybe you should have protected that love instead of putting it at risk. She wiped her eyes. Are you ever going to forgive me? I looked past her, at the moving truck parked across the street. A young couple was unloading furniture, starting their life together. Fresh. Untouched. No, I said calmly. Because forgiveness isn't a gift I owe you. It's something you earn. And some debts are too deep. She nodded, her lip trembling. I just wanted you to know. I regret it. Every second of it. I gave her a long, quiet look. Then I turned and went back inside. My son was on the floor building a spaceship out of Lego. He looked up and smiled. Who was that? I crouched beside him. Nobody important. And I meant it. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat alone in the kitchen with a single photo in my hand. It was from the hospital the day he was born, me holding him, Olivia smiling next to me, my father in the corner, pretending not to cry. I stared at the photo for a long time. 3 faces. 3 lies. I lit a match and dropped it into the sink, watching the edges curl black as the flames devoured what was left of that moment. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need reminders of the fantasy I'd been forced to live in. The next morning, I called my lawyer again. I want to change his name, I said. To what? I smiled. Grayson. Just Grayson. He was never a symbol of their betrayal. He was the proof I could love beyond blood, beyond pain, beyond humiliation. My son, my brother, was my son because I chose him every single day. A week later, I took him to the courthouse. He held my hand as we stood before the judge. He didn't fully understand, but when the judge asked if he liked his new name, he beamed and nodded. When we walked outside, I lifted him onto my shoulders. The sun was warm, the air sharp with the promise of a new chapter. I like our name, he said. Me too, I whispered. And just like that, the past lost its grip. They thought betrayal would break me. But I didn't just survive. I rebuilt. And I gave the Grayson name a new legacy, one born not from blood, but from truth. From love. From fire. A year passed. Grayson and I had settled into a quiet rhythm, weekday routines, Sunday pancakes, bedtime stories about dragons and astronauts. He was thriving. Confident. Curious. Always asking questions I didn't have answers to, but loving that I tried anyway. One evening, while he was asleep, I found a letter in the mailbox. No return address. Just my name, written in a shaky, familiar script. I stood there under the porch light for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single page, handwritten. I lost the trial. The IRS came next. Everything's gone. They're repossessing the house. I'm sick, cancer, they say. I don't have long. I don't ask for your forgiveness, son. I know I'm not owed it. But I wanted to tell you, you were the best thing I ever had. And I destroyed it. If I could trade places with him, if I could take that boy and give you back your life, I would. But I know it's too late. So I'll just say goodbye the only way I can. Dad. I folded the letter once, then again, and placed it in the drawer beneath the coffee machine. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt empty. Later that week, I drove out to the coast. Just me and Grayson. We stayed in a cabin, cooked over a fire, watched the waves crash under the moonlight. On the second night, he sat beside me on the porch. "Daddy," he said, "are you sad sometimes?" I nodded. "Yeah. Sometimes." "Because of Grandma and Grandpa?" I looked out at the ocean. "Because of people who made bad choices." He leaned his head against my arm. "But you didn't." I swallowed hard. "I made one really good choice." He looked up. "What?" I smiled at him. "I stayed." We sat in silence as the waves whispered in the dark. And in that moment, I didn't feel like a man who'd lost everything. I felt like a man who'd found something no one could ever take away. My legacy wasn't a name, or a bloodline. It was a boy with my new last name. And a future I'd carved out of betrayal, with nothing but grit, silence, and fire.